Alright guys, so today we're going to review law of sines, law of cosines, and how to know when to use one versus using the other. So we've got this little study thing that we've made, and this is on Canvas. If you want to print one off, you can do that. I want you to flip it over, and let's start by reviewing the law of sines. I need one of you guys to shout out what is one of the ways we could write out the law of sines.
Sine A, capital A, over little a, equals sine capital B over little b.
Great.
Equals sine capital C over little c.
Thank you for differentiating between a big C and a little c. So let's just put a little note here. If I'm talking about a big A, what is that referring to?
Angle.
Good. And if we're going little, then what is that talking about? Good job. Now this is one way I could write the law of sines. This is when I have the angles on top. When do I want it to look like this?
Finding your missing
Good job. So I'm going to put a note right here that I'm going to write it like this if I'm finding missing angles.
This is just the sines now.
So we want it to look like this if I'm having missing angles. The angles are on top. It makes it easier when we're doing the algebra. Alright?
So if we flip all of them, that's how we find the missing side.
Yep, so let's do that. So now, once we have that written down, what we're going to do is we're going to flip it. Flip it good. So I'm going to put A over sine of A is equal to B over sine of B, which is equal to C over sine of C. Now I always feel patriotic when I do that. Maybe it's because I'm thinking C the shining C, but C over sine of C. Alright, who is this for? He is not here. Sorry. Alright, so this is how I'm going to write it if we are trying to solve for missing sides. Now, just as a reminder, you were supposed to have watched the Law of Sines video and gone through those works, the practices and the problems last Friday. If you didn't, you need to still do that. I'm not going to go in depth. I'm going to do a couple examples with you, but I'm not going to do all of it. So please do that on your own. The view count did go up from 4 to 12, so some of you guys did it, but that's still missing about 48 of you guys. So thank you to those who have. If you haven't, get on it, all right?
I looked at it and found a new pattern. I found out, I think, what we're doing today.
All right, so now what we're going to do is I want you to flip this over. Does everyone have this? I feel like it's been there for a while. Okay, Brain, finish that.
Law of cosines underneath? What is that?
We're going to add the law of cosines underneath, but we're going to do the examples for law of sines while that's fresh on our brain.
Okay. Angle, side, and side, angle. That's what I figured out yesterday.
Good job. You were spot on, but we need to get there together.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Braylon. So we are going to now, Nellie, are you good? Okay, flip it over and let's look at this first triangle here. So open flap 1 to number 1. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to ask ourselves, what combination of sides or angles are we given? Let me just show you what I mean by that. So on this first one, I am given this side right here. So I'm given a side, the angle next to it, and then the angle next to that. So this is a side, angle, angle combination. Or if you wanted to reverse that, that's an angle, angle, side. So what I'm going to do is at the front here, hold on. I'm going to put in, this is a side, angle, angle, or in other words, an angle, angle, side. if you have this combination, we're going to use the law of sines to solve for a missing side. So I'm going to put a little note here. If I see that, then I can use the law of sines to write in a missing side. Eleanor, what were you going to say?
Technically, you can find the last angle because we're given two, so you can find that last angle by adding them and then subtracting that from the 80. But
That is true. If you're given two angles, you can find the third. And if you're solving a triangle, that's great. When I'm looking at this example here, guys, it says find side AB. Now, side AB, I'm going to connect A and B together. That's side AB. What is another name I could call this side?
C.
Since it's right across from C, it's right there. All right? Okay, now, going to your point, Eleanor, if it asked me for angle 8, that would have been great. If I'm just finding side C, though, then that would be kind of extra work, but it's good to know that. It's a good job. Now, when I'm doing the law of sines, I'm always going to start with the one that I'm trying to find. And then we're going to set that equal to the ones that we already know both the side and the angle of. So we are trying to find side C. Which letter do I know both the side and the angle of? If you look down here, we've got B. Angle B is 1/18. Side B is across from it, it's 30. So since I know both the side and the angle of B, we're going to use that. Now, I'm going to flip over, but I'm coming back. Which version of the law of sines are we going to use here?
The side on the bottom. Wait, no, the side on the bottom.
If we're trying to find a missing side, we put the sides on top. So it's going to look like this. And we're only going to use two of these. I know it's written where with it, you have A equals B equals C, but we're only going to use two of those. We're going to be using the one we want to find, which is C, and the one we know, which is B. So I'm going to set this up. C over sine of C is equal to B over sine of B. Again, we set it up with the sides on top because that's what we're finding is a side. Alright, now let's take a second and plug in what we need, or what we know. We're trying to find C, so we don't know that, but guys, what is angle C?
32.
Angle C is 32 degrees, right? Side B is 30, and angle B is 118 degrees. Alright, hold on, Mindy, you're speeding ahead. I'm glad you watched it. You know what you're doing. Let's get everyone there together. Alright, so guys, I'm trying to solve for C. It's being divided by the sine of 32. So what's the opposite of that? So in this case, good, we're going to get to that on the next one, but in this case, the opposite of dividing is multiplying. So I'm going to multiply by the sine of 32 on both sides, because when I divide sine of 32 by the sine of 32, it becomes 1. So it goes away. What that means is on this other side, which I'm going to need to sneak over into my next page a little bit, I'm going to multiply here by the sine of 32 as well. Now, before you get your calculator and start typing this in, you need to check your mode. What mode should you be in? Degrees, because your angle is given in degrees. So you're going to go on your calculator. Mode is right next to the blue button. Make sure it's in degrees. And then you're going to type in that whole thing. 30 times the sine of 32. Make sure you close the parentheses after 32. And then divide it by sine of 118. I'm going to show you that on my calculator as well. So I'm going to put 30 times the sine of 32, close parentheses, and then divide that by sine of 118 degrees. When I did, I got 18. We're rounding to the nearest tenth, so 18 even. Now, what is our units for this? 18 what? Good job. Okay. were you guys able to get this on your, or get this as well? When you put in your calculator, did you get 18? Okay, that's how you'd use the law of sines to find a missing side. And this is great because it works in triangles that aren't right. All the tools we learned before only applied if it was right. Okay, we're going to go to the next one. We're going to do 3 examples here, and then we'll take a little break. On the next one, let's look at what are we given as far as our sides and our angles. So I'm going to move up to this one now. And I want you to talk to your neighbor. I'll give you 10 seconds and figure out what combination of sides and angles are you given. Go. All right, let's go to Isaac. Isaac, what are you saying over there?
We know A
Uh-huh, that's this angle, okay?
for both of these.
We also know side A, great. And then we know this side right here, which is side C. So we are given a side-side angle. Now, if we are given a side-side angle, we can use the law of sines to find another missing angle. Now, this is when people say, what about the other way around? And I say, you're funny. You know not to do that. All right. Okay. So, if you have a side-side A angle, you're going to find a missing angle, all right? Okay. So, I'm going to open this flap, and we're going to go through this. But I'm going to get more helpers on this one. Excuse me. All right, let's go to Caroline first. Caroline, what are we trying to find on this one? Trying to find angle C. That's this angle right here. All right. Now, what do we know here? How would we label 22? Which side is that? That is A. Okay. What about this one down here, 10 feet? What side is that? So what angle is it across from?
C.
There we go. All right. So now we're trying to find C. So I'm going to put on here, we're trying to find angle C. Which letter do we know both the side and the angle of? What do you think, Melissa? We know A. Now, staying with you, Melissa, which version of this formula are we going to use? The top or the bottom? How come? There you go. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to set this up as sine of C over C. And that's equal to sine of A over A. Okay, now when I go to put that into my calculator, this is going to show up as sine of, or not my calculator yet. Let's just plug in our numbers. Louise, help me out with that. What did we say side C was?
10 feet.
10 feet, great. What is angle A?
80.
Great. And then what about side A?
22.
Okay. So again, we put the angles on top because we're finding missing angle, and then we just plug in what we know. If you do this right, there should only be one thing that you don't know, which is what we're going to solve for. Isaac, what do you think our first step is going to be here to solve for C?
To multiply.
Yep, multiply by what?
10.
Great. Multiply by 10 on both sides. 10 divided by 10 is 1, so then that just leaves me with sine of C is equal to, and I'm going to give some space here, sine of 88 degrees times 10 over 22. All right, Skylar, what undoes a sine?
Undoes.
undoes a sign? Undoes a sign?
Oh, never mind, I see. Wait.
What do you guys say? The opposite of a sign, or if we want to undo a sign, we're going to do a inverse sign. Good job. Which is sine to the negative 1. When you take the inverse sign of a sign, it cancels it out. Did we talk about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids last time?
Yeah.
When we watched Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, how did he get them back? He shrunk the kids and then he had to blow them up. So the blowing up undoes the shrinking. They're opposite operations. The inverse sign is the opposite of sine. So they cancel out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on my calculator and put this whole thing in. I'm going to do the inverse sine of the sine of 88 divided by, or times 10 divided by 22. I'm going to show you what that looks like on my calculator here. Sine of 88. Make sure you close the parentheses after 88. And then after the 22, also close it from the sine inverse. Were you guys able to get 27?
Yes.
Awesome. That's what I got. 27 what? What are we measuring here? This is the angle C, so since it's an angle, we're going to be measuring in degrees. Alright, so if you're given a side-side angle combination, this is how you would solve it using the law of sines. Okay? So now, I've got a side-side angle, and we've also got the side angle angle or angle angle side. Let's go to our last one here, all right? Okay, turn to your neighbor. What combination of sides and angles are you given here? I'll give you 10 seconds. All right, Brian, what do you say? What do we know about this triangle? Yep, so we got an angle, okay. What else do we know? Yep, so we have another angle, so we got two angles, and then what else? Good job. I'm going to label that as C. So this is an angle side angle. So I'm going to write on my front, if I am given an angle side angle, then I can use the law of sines, and this is going to help me find a missing side. All right, now, okay, let's go over this. The thing that's tricky on this is when I'm doing the law of sines, I'm going to start out the same way as before. We're going to start out with the one that we're trying to find, which it says here, find AC. If I connect AC, what's another name we could give this side? That's B, right? It's across from angle B. So what we're trying to find is B. Now, we're going to set that equal to the letter that we know both the side and the angle of. This is a little tricky because if I look at A, I know angle A, but not side A. If I look at C, I know the side, but not the angle. However, this ties back to what Eleanor was telling us earlier, which is what, Mindy? Yeah, I can find C because I know two of the other angles. So if I just do 180 and we take off the two angles, so let's subtract 57, let's subtract 28. I believe those add up to 85, so 180 minus 85 is 95 degrees. So we actually can figure out what C is by doing the triangle angle sum theorem, which just tells you all angles in a triangle add up to, the measure of their angles adds up to 180. So, we know C. We know both the side and angle of C. Alright. Oscar, which version of the law of sines are we going to use? Is that what we're finding here is a missing angle? Yeah, so this one actually wants us to find a side. So we're going to set it up with which one? The bottom one. There we go. And we're going to use the letters B and C because we want to find B and we know C. So I'm going to set this up as B over sine of B equals C over sine of C. Now, I'm going to let you try this one on your own. I'm going to give you a couple minutes here. And I want you to see if you can figure this one out without me telling you what to do. So plug in the numbers, solve it, and then we'll go over it together. All right, Eleanor, tell me how you plug this in.
Okay. So we have B, we don't know it, and then we have the sine of 57 is equal to 19, and the sine over 95.
Do you guys agree?
Yes.
That's just plugging in what we know here, okay? All right, so now, David, what am I going to do on both sides? If I want to solve for B, what would be the next step? So that's if I'm finding an angle, that's a good one. But this one, we're actually, if we're dividing by the sine of 57, we want to do the opposite of dividing, which would be, yeah, that's multiply both sides by the sine of 57. And that's actually all I need to do. I can then go and put that into my calculator. 19 times the sine of 57 over the sine of 95. Someone shout out what they got when they did this.
16.
16 what?
16 kilometers.
Yeah. Get her answer. Nice and easy, right?